Okay. I'm going to say that instead of all right, by one of the better actors. Um, this is the Midnight Skeptic, as if you all didn't know by now. Uh, I am here to enlighten, hopefully entertain, and in my own small way that I've said before, help this country via this broadcast and YouTube presentation to rid this nation of all Republicans, conservatives, MAGA heads, Christian nationalists, Christian fundamentalists, and all other sorts of stupid people. All right. None of my viewers, the thousands and thousands of watchers and listeners to this, I would consider stupid. No, they aren't. They're enlightened, and we'll leave the stupidity to especially Texas and Oklahoma Republicans. Okay. And all sorts of other Jesus screamers out there. Okay. Today is Thursday, the 9th of January. Oh, my goodness. Only 11 more days until the Orange Sociopathic Bloatbag gets inaugurated as our latest president of these United States. Oh, my goodness. Oh, jeez. I am trying my best to be optimistic that, one, he won't be as bad as I think he's going to be, and two, the Democrats and progressives and liberals will throw up enough roadblocks in front of him to keep him from fulfilling his Project 2025 that was all laid out by the Heritage Foundation, which should be, I don't know, wiped off the face of this earth. That's not a threat, Meta, if you're listening. Okay, here is, after that mini rant, my play-in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Oh, boy, 11 more days. 11 more days. What I'm going to do, which is slightly different in this show, on this show, I actually ran out of time on last week's show, and there's one bit of what I consider bad news and one bit of really, really good news that I had to not say on last week's show. So I'm going to do them now, and then I will get to the shout outs. First, the bad news, and it's not all that bad. Certainly not like the Orange Sociopathic Bloatbag's inauguration, but it's, I consider bad news anyway. The Shin Yun, and you've seen their advertise its ad infinitum, ad nauseum on television, billboards, almost everywhere. Okay, they are a circus dance troupe. I think I haven't seen them, but I think they're similar in some ways to Cirque du Soleil. Okay, they are a troupe that is an offshoot of the religious cult Falun Gong. Falun Gong was formed by this Chinese guy, Li Hongzhi, capital Hongzhi. That's the English transliteration of his last name, and is an anti-communist, which is okay with me. I'm not a communist or in favor of communist regimes, and its Falun Gong has been banned in China, and I'm sure a number of its adherents have been disappeared, tortured, whatever. It spreads right-wing conspiracy theories, though, in this country through its newspaper, the Epoch Times, EPOCH. Every now and then, I'll get a free issue of this newspaper, and I don't know whether or not they have a radio program anywhere or anything like that. Certainly they aren't on TV, but there's good and bad with them. Like I say, I've never seen their performance, and it looks like they have some very talented dancers and gymnasts, but I'm not going to see them either. And they use low paid labor, if not child labor, in their productions, and for that reason I dislike them. And they're helping spread, right-wing propaganda of various sorts, and I haven't heard any of their right-wing conspiracy theories that they're trying to spread. But if I run across any, I will let you know out there. Okay, enough of them. Okay, good news. The late Jimmy Carter went on national TV during his term to deliver a speech called Crisis of Confidence. In it, he warned of materialism. He said, quote, "Too many of us tend to worship self-indulgence and consumption. Human identity is no longer defined by what one does, but by what one owns, which does not satisfy our longing for meaning," unquote. And I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. He was right then, as he is right now. His thoughts and beliefs are right now. Now, he was a very devout Christian of the good kind. I'm not a Christian. I've told you guys out there on many shows that I am not religious. In fact, the more I go into finding out about religions of all kinds, I become more anti-religious. But within the Christian community, there are good ones, which Jimmy Carter is the embodiment of, or was the embodiment of. And there are bad Christians that are just grifters. Joel Osteen, for one. And I'm not going to go into naming all of the Christian grifters in their mega churches and private jets, but I don't know. I'm sure that that's how the Sky Daddy God up there wants to be worshipped by these shark skin suited grifters. Okay, anyway, but I am a great admirer of Jimmy Carter. The time that he served as our president was a very fraught time with various movements coming along that were the antithesis of America. The Iranian mullah's revolution, for one, and Iran has gone downhill ever since. And the Shah of Iran was not a good guy, but Islamic fundamentalism took over, and women began to be covered. Okay, I'll go into all of the reasons that I dislike the Islamic religion in a later show. Now's not the time. What the time is now is for my shout-outs. Okay, first, I always start with Project Censored. Mickey Huff and Shayali Voidal. Both of them are back at Ithaca College in upstate New York. The town's called Ithaca. It's where Cornell is located as well. But Mickey Huff used to be out here as a professor at Diablo Valley College. It's right across the bay from Petaluma here. And Andy Lee Roth, who's a history professor down at UC Santa Cruz, and Nolan Higdon. He was, I'm pretty sure he's not now, one of the three guys that kept Project Censored in the front of people's minds and cranking out these annual books, The State of the Free Press, whatever year. Now, 2025 is out and available. Go to their website and sign up for their newsletter. And, it's very enlightening if you have concerns at all about the free press. And believe me, it's in danger. In 11 days, the Orange Sociopathic Bloatbag will be in the White House, and he is no fan of the free press. I got to take a sip. Okay. Tom Gaffey at the Phoenix Theater. I've talked about him a lot. The kind of the godfather of the alternative teen scene here in Petaluma. John Crowley at Aquas Cafe, and he encourages nonprofit organizations to have their meetings at his cafe. Good food, light fare, and it's a good meeting place. And he has ethnic dinners now and then, Greek, Italian dinners, Mexican dinners, and he encourages people that come to these dinners to have conversations in their native tongues. And he also sponsors drinks with shrinks, which I have attended a couple of times. I am not a shrink, but I was a private tutor here in Petaluma, in addition to my regular paycheck and benefits job, for about 35 years. And I used a lot of the skills that I learned while getting my own master's degree in clinical psychology. Anyway, enough of that. Okay, Rabbi Ted Feldman, who is retired now, was the rabbi at B'nai Israel here in Petaluma. I got to know him fairly well. My wife was Jewish. She passed away in 2013. She and I used to go to his night classes and dinners on Jewish holidays. And I learned quite a bit about the Zionist movement. And I'm not a big fan of them. And the history of the founding of the State of Israel and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, enough of that. Amelia Beamer, who is a editor, novelist, and spokesperson for Focus magazine, which is located over here in Oakland. And she is a mentor of sorts to budding novelists, of which I am one. I'll go into that a little bit later. I mean, not today, but in a future show. Okay, Nelson and Alice Lydell in Florida. Amelia's in Florida, by the way, also. Nelson Lydell, who was in my high school class. I consider the smartest guy in our class. He is a retired United States Public Health Service officer, and his specialty was breathing apparatuses and face masks. And that came in handy during the COVID-19 outbreak. Okay, and he's in. He and his wife Alice are living in Sarasota, Florida now, and up until recently were dodging hurricanes. Okay. Now, these names are people that have let me know that occasionally, some of them very occasionally, listen into the show. They're friends, relatives, acquaintances, etc., etc. Okay. Well, first of all, Rob Tomaszewski, the station manager of KPCA dot or dash LP.FM. He's the one who started this radio station, which is low power. That's what the LP stands for. About 7 years ago, and I was one of the originals to start up, and well, here I am, still going along strong. Well, not quite so strong as I used to, but okay. And a couple that I forgot to mention last week, or that I had a brain freeze from last week's shout-outs. Shannon Reed in Arkansas. Her son is really growing up there. I think he's 14 or 15 now, but she's in real estate, and she was and is back there a body worker. She was a massage therapist at the Fairmont Spa and Resort over in, well, it's not Sonoma, the town of Sonoma. It's El Verano, I think. That's a really small town over there. But anyway, that's where she worked for a long time. And Yvonne and Rick down in San Francisco. Hope to see you soon, Yvonne and Rick, up at Kevin and Lori's in Cotati. I forgot to even mention them last week. But they vacation a lot. Okay, they're both retired from AT&T. Okay, Tom and Nancy Throw, Dave and Rosita Takach. Kevin and Lori, I mentioned them. They're up in Cotati. Oh, boy. Yeah, boy, these brain freezes come along when you least want them to. Rich and Kathy Berger over in Sebastopol. And then back down here in Petaluma, locally, Art Kuznets, who I met through B'nai Israel, and Tim Conrad, in my class, another one up in Sonora. He lives down here now, and he's retired from the Sonoma County Child Protection Services. Boy, do we need more guys like him in our government. Okay, going down the peninsula a ways in Tiburon, Dennis and Megan, and over in Pacifica, Stan and Kathy. Stan is retired city attorney of Daly City. And then further on down, Aunt Jackie and her two daughters, Samantha and Melanie. Melanie's over in Austin, Texas, but Aunt Jackie and Samantha are in the LA area. And I've got in touch with them to ask if they were in any danger from these horrendous wildfires that are going off in the LA area. Oh boy, they assured me that they were still safe for now. And speaking of the LA wildfires, leave it to the MAGA head Republican conservative stupid jerks looking for any reason to blame California politicians, mainly Democrats, for the wildfires. The Orange Sociopathic Bloatbag says, well, we didn't rake leaves enough. I've heard it, the lack of water blamed on smelts, the little fish. That's one of the Orange Sociopathic Bloatbag's favorite things. We released water up in Northern California from some of our reservoirs to help with the fish. And he says, and his stupid followers believe him, that we're dumping all of our reservoir water and water from Canada out into the ocean. It's all a lie. And the Orange Sociopathic Bloatbag just loves to gin up anger, and his followers / worshipers, they'll believe anything that creep says. Okay, I'm in a major rant right now. Ooh. But it feels good. Okay, further up the East Coast, Dr. David Rubin in the Raleigh-Durham area, he is, without a doubt, the world's greatest pulmonary physician. He and I roomed together for a couple of years in San Francisco back in the late 70s, the 1970s, not the 1870s. And he, I won't go into his career, but he was a lung researcher. Okay. And then he retired from that, went to work for GlaxoSmithKline, setting up studies of their various drugs. And then now he's retired from that and is pursuing an artistic career. Check him out by going to davidrubinpaintings.com. He has a very unique take on reality. A little further up the coast, a long way up the coast, to Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. I haven't heard from her in a long, long time, but you know, I assume she's still living up there with her husband, Arthur. He's got to be retired by now. Okay. Anyway, back here on the West Coast, the Sonora crowd, Robert Finnegan, Bob and Sandy Fisher, and their two offspring, Martha and Brad. Brad's the head of the Tuolumne County Historical Society. check them out. They're in downtown Sonora if you're ever up that way. Okay. Darrell Larson, Judy May, Kathy Francis, Lynn Quayle, who splits her time between Manhattan and Sonora. Boy, what a contrast in lifestyles. Ooh. And then further on up Highway 108 to the town of Twainhart, John Gleason and his two daughters, Tiffany and Jennifer. Tiffany is a professor of African studies, and I'm not sure where she's a professor at now, but she speaks, oh boy, I keep forgetting the name of the African language that she speaks. It is spoken in the country of Benin, Benin. She's gone there and spoken to museum curators, government officials, and anyway, I will tell you next show what languages she speaks. Okay, and then all the way down to Mexico City, Rosamalia Lopez Negrete, and she is not a big fan of Claudia Scheinbaum. I am. Rosie calls her a communist. Well, she's not. She's quite lefty and liberal and progressive, which I am. She's kind of like the Bernie Sanders and the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of the United States, with a lot more power. She is la Presidente de Mexico. All right. Whew. I got through the shout-outs. I need another sip of water. Okay, good news. Hyapak Ecotech Limited. Okay, I'll spell that for you if you want to Google it. Capital H-Y-A, capital P-A-K, capital E-C-O-T-E-C-H. Hyapak Teco. Man, I'm having some trouble here, as if you didn't know. Hyapak Ecotech Limited, founded by, Joseph Nguthiru in Kenya, uses dried water hyacinth, an invasive plant species. I'm familiar with water hyacinth. They are an invasive species over in Stockton and the Delta in general, the Delta of California, which is the confluence of the San Joaquin and the Sacramento rivers and all their tidewater inlets. Okay, but water hyacinth interferes with boat traffic. I mean, it interferes with a lot of things. Okay, but this guy, Joseph Nguthiru, uses dried hyacinth, water hyacinth, an invasive plant species, and some binding chemicals to create a thin plastic-like material that biodegrades over a few months. Bags and packaging would be a good use for this. East Africa Climate Action Award was given to him for this. Kenya has banned single-use plastic bags, as we all should here in this country. Well, but they need something to carry, stuff from grocery stores. Well, this guy has come up with a biodegradable plastic bag. All right. So good for him. Whew. Great news. In a 6-1 ruling, the Montana Supreme Court affirmed the plaintiff's rights to a clean, quote unquote, clean and healthful environment in their constitution. Well, who were the plaintiffs? Rikki Held, Rikki. I think she's around 20 now. She's the lead plaintiff of 16 Montana youths who sued in 2020, the year 2020, the state of Montana for not considering greenhouse gas emissions when authorizing fossil fuel projects. Oil drilling, gas drilling, refining plants, etc., etc. Montana versus Held, Held, was brought by their legal representation, Our Children's Trust, which is an environmental law firm in Portland, Oregon. So that's good news. The one who voted against this obviously has to be a Republican. Okay, another sip. Okay, bad news. There are 1,700, roughly, orphaned oil and gas wells just in the state of New Mexico. Orphaned wells are abandoned by their owners and left unplugged and leaking contaminants like brine, benzene, and methane into waterways, farmland, and public and private wells. It costs money to plug them up properly. The New Mexico government should find out who owned these orphan wells and make them come forward to plug them. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how much reduction in the CEO's Christmas bonuses will cost. They should do that. Should have been good news. All right. The late President Jimmy Carter was an environmental visionary driven by the OPEC oil embargo, and I'm old enough to remember that, in the late 1970s, and echoes of the 1970 Earth Day. Solar power was finally seriously talked about in his administration for the U.S., for the first time in the U.S. government's history. He had solar panels installed on the White House roof, and more importantly, pledged federal funding for solar research. This was in the Carter administration. Good for him. And this is a quote from Jimmy Carter. "Nobody can embargo sunlight," Carter said. "No cartel controls the sun. Its energy will not run out. It will not pollute the air. It will not poison our water." He said this from the government's mountaintop solar energy laboratory in Golden, Colorado. This, of course, freaked out executives in the oil, gas, and coal industries. They hid the findings of their own scientists, and I'll get into that shortly, especially Exxon, which is now ExxonMobil, that burning these fossil fuels would release massive quantities of CO2 into the air, thus warming the whole planet. Yada, 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 yada. We've gone through that. And now I'm going to talk about a lawsuit concerning this very thing. Whew. Okay. Okay. Good news. Exxon is being sued by California Attorney General Rob Bonta, Sierra Club, Surfrider Foundation, Heal the Bay, and San Francisco Baykeeper. They're suing because of deceptive practices and pursuing claims that, quote unquote, advanced recycling will solve the plastics problem. Well, it won't. There's not enough single-use and so on plastics that are being collected and melted down and incinerated, which is what advanced recycling really is. And out of this advanced recycling fraud comes fuels, jet fuels, fuel additives to gasoline. It will ultimately add more CO2 to the atmosphere. Advanced recycling is a corporate sham and a way to fool the public into thinking that the plastic pollution problem on this planet can be solved. Okay, in a fit of pique, ExxonMobil is countersuing the involved parties. Exxon is the world's largest producer of single-use plastic polymers and CO2 emissions from internal combustion, transportation, power plants, and diesel engines, and ships and railroad trains. Their own scientists, which I have said a couple of times before on previous shows, back in the late 60s, their own scientists realized that if all of this, refined oil and gas and coal is burned as it's intended to do in the things I just mentioned, railroads, shipping, diesel engines, power plants, and cars, that the resulting release of carbon dioxide will warm the atmosphere and thus warming the planet, thus melting the ice at the poles. Thus. Okay, and this wasn't news, really, in scientific circles. Svante Arrhenius, capital S-V-A-N-T-E, capital A-R-R-H-E-N-I-U-S. He was a Swedish scientist and chemist and physicist, declared in 1896 that if all of the oil and gas and coal that were mined and brought up to the surface and refined and burned as it was intended to be, that the resulting CO2 releasing of the process would warm the atmosphere. He was the first one that proved the greenhouse effect. But that was in 1896. Oh, God, I need another sip. This ranting is drying out my throat. Horrible news. Okay, this is off the usual topic. A nurse in a Virginia hospital, has been arrested for injuring on purpose newborn babies. She would break their bones in their legs. She's mentally ill. And all of these babies, there were 8 in all, were black. Aaron Elizabeth Ann Stroutman, capital Stroutman. She's 26, and she's been arrested, and I don't know any more about the story than that, whether she's still in jail awaiting trial or what. Any updates, I will let you guys know. Okay. Bad news. Well, it's understandably bad news. It comes from Tennessee. State Representative Michael Hale, who is, of course, a Republican in Tennessee, introduced House Bill 0047 that would allow local school boards to decide if their schools should display quote-unquote historical documents in the classrooms of Tennessee's schools. Okay, now, you know that this is just a way to get the 10 Commandments into the Tennessee classrooms. In the bill he introduced, he listed a bunch of historical documents, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, there was a number of historical documents that he listed, including the 10 Commandments, which is not a historical document in the way that intelligent people understand the term historical documents. Sneaky Christians trying to shove these Bibles and 10 Commandments in front of our kids, and yet Christian nationalists and conservatives and MAGA heads accuse the public schools of indoctrinating our kids. Well, Christians are trying to do the same thing. We must stop them. I haven't lately heard any accusations of grooming. Maybe that's kind of used up its usefulness for MAGA heads. Okay. RFK Jr. time. Okay. Yet another study clears vaccines as a cause for autism. autism first appeared in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual in 1980. The DSM is a manual that gives numerical code names to psychological disorders or psychological conditions, I think would be a better word to use, so that psychiatrists and psychologists can bill insurance companies for the treatment for patients with these terms. Okay. Before 1980, autism was not listed. Okay. Andrew Wakefield. I'm not going to go into a details rant about this quack, but he was a British doctor in a study tried to link autism with vaccines. His quote-unquote study had 13 participants in it. That's not a study. That's a multiple anecdote. Anyway, this linkage between vaccines and autism found its way into the, I don't know, email inbox of some Hollywood personality, a female. I think she was an actress or had some connection with the Hollywood glitterati, and she had two kids, boys, who were diagnosed as being autistic. And she made her way onto the Oprah Winfrey show. And then from there, it spread like wildfire. And I can't remember the celebrity's name. And I'll go into the Andrew Wakefield story on a future show again. But anyway, his study, after it was accepted by the Lancet, which is the premier British medical journal, I don't know how this got by their peer reviewers, but it was published. And then a number of years later, after peers, other doctors, and other researchers began to seriously look at this, it was retracted, and he lost his medical license in England because I think he fudged some of the results of his quote-unquote study. Anyway, I don't know what he's doing now, but study was retracted, lost his license. Okay. Whew. Enough of that. Okay. These are kind of short. Well, okay. A new code word update, DEI, is now being used by MAGA heads, conservatives, Republicans, Christian nationalists, instead of all the pejoratives used against minorities. If a black person gets a position in, I don't know, business or academia, you can hear all the Republicans going, DEI. Okay. And they use that term against, talk about a horrible, Jesus, against any political candidate or reporting or I need another sip of water. Kamala Harris. They used it, the term DEI, against Kamala Harris instead of what they were really thinking in their minds. How did that black bitch get to be running for president. We can't have that in this country. Rah, 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 rah. I want the Orange Bloatbag. He'll save us. Rah, rah, rah. Okay, enough. Somewhat good news. Climate and carbon removal. Oh, damn. I lost track of my notes. Okay. Here is a warning for my millions of followers. Over-the-counter protein powder contains dangerous amounts of lead and cadmium, and especially the chocolate-flavored ones, which have been proven to be the highest protein powder content of all. Any amount of lead in your system is dangerous. And I'm not sure about the cadmium levels, but do not eat or consume anything with lead in it if you can help it. I've said on previous shows that Ayurvedic medicines from India, basically, most of the ones that have been studied in a scientific method contain dangerous levels of lead. Don't use Ayurvedic medicines, and don't go to a alternative or complementary practicing doctor that incorporates Ayurvedic medicine in his or her repertoire. Just don't. You have been warned. Okay, now, somewhat good news. Climate and carbon removal is a long game. Over the last 200 years, we have collectively deposited 1.7 trillion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. This amount grows by 40 billion tons per year currently. Carbon carbon dioxide removal, or CDR, is a growing business. My notes are a bit disorganized. Okay, capital CDR dot FYI is a online track keeping outfit that keeps track of the growth of this industry. They're keeping track of the more than 800 carbon removal companies that have started within the last, 5 years or so. Large CO2 polluters, big oil, I'm talking to you, and manufacturing companies tries to keep, large CO2 polluters, okay, by B-U-Y, damn, my notes are terrible, by carbon removal credits to show how green they are. Does carbon dioxide removal technology work? I'm telling you, it's a scam. And do they put out more CO2 with this technology than they remove from the air? I am not sure about that. And many environmentalists say they don't. They're not good in the aggregate for the atmosphere. Okay. Bad news, RFK Jr., who I call Wormbrain, is trying to claim he had nothing to do with the low anti-measles vaccination rate in Sonoma. God, Sonoma, that's the county I live in. We're talking Samoa. In 2019, where 83 people died because of not having measles vaccinations. He convinced the Samoan government to not emphasize or not require MMRI vaccinations of the island's children. Ooh, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, where am I? Okay, a couple more minutes. Bad news. Ecuador's president, Daniel Noboa, handed over the Galapagos Islands to the United States for construction of a military base. What could possibly go wrong for the plant and animal life in the ecosystem? Oh, I haven't heard enough about this. Okay, last thing on this show, truths about transgender youth. 1, less than 0.6% of kids are transgender. The MAGA heads think, when they were surveyed, think it's about 20% of kids are transgender. That's a successful ginning up of fear by the GOP MAGA head Republican conservative war machine. Okay. The head of the NCAA at a Senate hearing said when asked, there were 510,000 athletes registered in the NCAA. When asked how many of them are transgender, he said, well, 10. Oh, my God. You guys do the math. It is such a low percentage, but that won't stop the MAGA head GOP from attacking them and ginning up fear about trans. Okay. Less than 1,000 youths accessed puberty blockers over the whole country. And less than 2,000 had access to hormones, estrogen and, brain freeze on the male hormone. Anyway, less than 2,000. Ooh, I've got to play my out music. Damn it. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Gotta go. I will see all you guys next week. Pet your cats. Really. It works to reduce your stress. Okay. 11 days before the bloatbag is president. Bye-bye.